in the Bondurant family, what was the legend of this? Was there word of it? Was it something that nobody talked about? How did you come across the story?
No, there wasn't really much talk. No, it wasn't really much of a legend. We had a general sense that my grandfather was involved in the moonshine trade, but we didn't know to the extent of it at all. My grandfather, when he was 90 years old, was when my father found the first newspaper articles about 15 years ago about the shooting at the Magotty Creek Bridge in December of 1930, where he was shot and Forrest was shot by Deputy Charlie Rakes.
So how accurate were the injuries that we saw at that moment? I mean, was Forrest shot 3 times?
No.
Wounds the whole time?
No, there was really, as far as the historical record's concerned, there was only 3 shots fired. Charlie Rakes shot Jack, and then he shot Forrest, and then he tried to shoot Howard, but another deputy knocked his arm down, and he discharged the shot into the snow. Mm-hmm. Which is one of the things that's very intriguing to me. I had to consider, like, what led these 3 brothers to this point, that they were at this bridge in the winter of 1930 with these 3 cars full of liquor in a blockaded bridge to get out of the county, and there was this deputy, Charlie Rakes, that clearly wanted to kill them. I mean, my grandfather Jack was shot. According to the court transcripts and things, as far as we know, he didn't have his gun out at the time. He had his hands up and was shot through his chest here. So it was almost sort of a cold blood. He was attempting to kill them, and so there was a huge animosity between them. Mm-hmm. There are the court transcripts also indicate that at the time that Charlie Rakes said to them, as he stood over Jack's body, "I thought you Bondurants were hard-boiled son of a bitches," which is the line that Nick Cave put into an earlier part. But and then another part, Deputy Abshire there said, "We're not afraid of you like everybody else." And then Forrest at one point said, "Somebody's going to die unless you let it cross this bridge." So there's all these lines that sort of helped create the characters for me, help you understand that these were people that were feared for some reason, and there was a clear animosity between them and these deputy sheriffs. And so part of my task as a novelist was to create a plausible, dramatic narrative that would explain that.
Well, and how reliable would the court records be given how corrupt this county was at this time?
That's a very good point. You basically had 2 different versions going on. You had the police and the deputy sheriffs and things that were testifying, and then you also had all these moonshiners, and these were criminals. And so it was
in the film, one of the deputies shoots the guy.
Yeah. Well, the thing is that Charlie Rakes died. He didn't die like like that in real life with the stabbing and all that stuff. But he did die of very mysterious circumstances a few days before he was about to testify against his boss, who they call Mason Wardell here, which in real life was a man named Carter Lee. As well as other deputies also died in dramatic ways right before they're about to testify. I mean, and everybody knows that basically Carter Lee had these people killed. And so in the book, what I suggested was a scenario that might account for the Bondurants having some part in Charlie Rakes' death, but because of course they had plenty reason to want to kill him or to get him back in some way. But that was, Hillcoat and Nick Cave wanted to make a more dramatic sort of ending, as far as, and with a film you have to kill the villain off immediately like that.
So the first time you saw this movie as a Bondurant, do you feel like you have more of a swagger to you now? I mean, because this film just sort of, your family's badasses, I just gotta say, right? They were protecting our right to the pursuit of happiness through alcohol, which we celebrate here at the Alamo Draft House.
Well, occasionally I'll get this question, and I do wonder if at some point after this film comes out, people are going to start taking shots at me in the street.
It wouldn't do any good. You're invincible.
Well, I just have to say, take your best shot. You got, if you think if you want to test it out, then we're ready to go. Go ahead. I'll be outside later, out front. Anybody who wants to take a shot.
Any questions from the audience out here? Yes, over here.
He did. That was a well-known story in Franklin County that Forrest did have his throat cut at a restaurant way station that he ran. It was called the County Line, and it was a notorious place for moonshining. Now we don't know exactly how it occurred as far as the incidents, but he was already at this point a notorious moonshiner, part of the gang, and so I created that scenario to explain it. But he did, he had this massive scar through the rest of his life.
And those earlier stories about the two older brothers, those are also true stories about watching everyone in his group drown. And...
Oh no! Howard was a veteran, but in here they say everybody drowned, which was unusual. The only thing we know is that in his troop, when he was returning from World War I, the Spanish lady flu influenza, which most people believe came. A lot of soldiers died in the port as they were waiting, and so in the book I talk more about basically it was the flu influenza that was killing everybody off. I'm not sure why they said drowned, but
it sounds dramatic.
Yeah, but the Spanish lady flu influenza in 1970, it was a huge, devastating, and it killed off a lot of people.
Yeah.
In the film, they had it kill off everybody except for the three brothers, which is not historically accurate. The father survived, other people survived too, but they needed to cut that down, I think.
Over here.
Yeah, well, you have to do research for these kinds of things. I wanted to be sure that I knew. No, I mean, when I grew up in Franklin, visiting my cousins in Franklin County when I was like, 10 years old, we used to sneak into my Uncle Howard's cupboard and, get the jar out and drink some and gasp and spit and everything. And it's available, it's around if you know. But of course, the official line is that there is no Bondurant that is involved in the making, selling, or distributing illegal liquor that I'm aware of.
Very good.
Yeah.
Any other? Yes, over there. Yes, you.
So you weren't consulted in like the screenplay and writing the script for the movie?
No, I wasn't. I mean, I was consulted by Hillcoat and many of the actors. For example, Jason Clarke, who plays Howard, who I think does a masterful job here. He really kind of buries himself in the part. I mean, Jason Clarke looks and sounds and acts most like a Franklin County person, in my opinion. But he actually drove from Chicago and spent 3 days in Franklin County hanging. He was like, hey, I'm going to drive through Franklin County. Do you know anybody there that I can talk to? I want to talk with the accent, etc. So I called my cousins up. The next thing I know, he's spending like 3 days there. He's like, I had sent these pictures. He's with my uncles and aunts, and he's sitting around having dinner with them. And now he's like Facebook friends with them and texting with them and stuff. So, there was that basically, but no, Nick Cave didn't at all. And which I understand. I mean, everything that I know about it, or any artistic choices or etc. that I have is in the book. And so he had the book, and he needed some space to create his own vision of it from that. So I totally respect that decision not to consult me on that. I think I would have done the same thing. But Hillcoat and everybody else, I was included in a very generous fashion, not in any kind of contractual obligation fashion, but in just sort of a generous fashion. They wanted to stay true to the spirit of the book, and I think they did a good job of doing that.
When you were doing your research into your family history in this period in time, what was the thing that you came across that you just couldn't believe that this was in your family history?
Well, I think the story of Forrest. I mean, the throat cutting and that he walked through the snow to the hospital was it's a sort of legend of Franklin County, and I did the math on it. It's like 9 miles. It doesn't seem really plausible. So when I realized that, I created the scenario that make this true with Maggie. I mean, that Maggie was with him at this time, and that's all true, but nobody knows how he survived that. But also, that the fact that he was shot, and then in the book, which is not in the film, but a little bit after that, one of his rivals arranged for a load of lumber to be dropped on him, broke every bone in his body. He was in a body cast for like 3 months, and he walked out of that too. So he kind of had this, he had this like Rasputin quality. He was like, you couldn't kill this guy, and that was
so Hillcoat decided dropping a ton of lumber on Forrest would just be too ridiculous.
Maybe. I know.
Yeah,
it seems ridiculous to me too. But that actually happened to him. And then he did fall into a ice-covered creek and got pneumonia and died from that. And that's
Yeah.
it's as a writer, you when you discover that, you're like, wow, the dramatic irony is almost too obvious, but at the same time, and people have asked me before, like, why didn't you want Forrest to go out in a more regular dramatic way? But I think it's important to kind of puncture that myth to some degree. I mean, he was a man, and that's how people die. I mean, they die in ways that are not dramatic or romantic or especially interesting. They in very sort of sad, very simple ways, and that's how he died. Yeah, but he was an astonishing person, clearly. He was in his. They say 1940 here. He was a little bit older than that. It was in the mid 40s. He was in his 40s. He was in his 40s, and he had survived a lot of things. I mean, my father remembers dinners. He would when he ate dinner, like this bulge would come out of his stomach because he got shot in the stomach, and like some country doctor didn't sew up the inside lining so he'd get this bulge whenever he ate food that would stick out. And I remember thinking, like, how do you survive that? That doesn't seem medically, like, how do you walk around? So you couldn't kill, and one of the things people asked me was like, they were a feared group, people were scared of them. There's all these interesting things with the court transcripts, like people were scared of them, and I was like, why were they scared of them? Because I don't think my relatives are the kind of people that would go around purposefully intimidating or pistol whipping people or trying to get them scared of them. The reason why people scared him because Forrest, you couldn't kill him.
Yeah.
And so that was the sort of, that was the premise of the book, and of course the film really kind of, the invincible thing. They really took that and made that a center point. But that was a big thing that helped sort of open up the story for me as a writer, was that there was this guy you couldn't seem to kill.
Now, you were joking earlier about retiring at this point. Are you thinking of retiring, or are you looking at other books to write?
No, I'm not retiring. I have, my last novel just came out in paperback. It's called The Night Swimmer, by the way, by Scribner, now in paperback. It's getting buried by all this wonderful publicity for Wettest County in the world, which of course is a really wonderful problem to have. And I'm working on a fourth book, and The Night Swimmer, my third book after this one, is the best book I've ever written, and my next one is going to be the better than that. I mean, that's the only thing you can go for as a writer, is that the next book is better, and hopefully in the end all of this stuff allows me to write one more book. That's all I want to do, is I want to have the chance to write another book and to write a better one. That's.
Well, I hope to see many more of your works. And
thank you.
More on the screen, hopefully.
Thanks. Yeah, me too. That'd be cool.
Thank you.
Thanks
so
a lot.
much.
Thank you all for
Everybody.
coming. Appreciate it.